So, good evening, friends and brethren. Welcome to the presentation number one. This is the Mystery Babylon, and much awaited and on demand from the brethren. We are starting this series. At this point, I do not know how many messages we would have in this series, but it is a quite intriguing topic, and it is somewhat complex because it has multi-facets and multi-layers and multi-levels. So this is a huge body of teachings, instructions, and in order to understand this subject, we have to take baby steps. And the expectation is you are somewhat familiar with the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation. And how much thorough you are, it again depends upon you and how many years you have spent. But some of the brethren, some of the attendees could be brand new, so I'm keeping them also in view and kind of building things from scratch. So those of you who know several things about Mystery Babylon, please be merciful, please be compassionate and patient with the brethren that are not as well read like you. So we all cooperate with one another. And as the presenter goes with a pace, try to accommodate yourself with that pace. So that's my request. And we will launch the presentation. So today we would do the introduction and foundation. So, but for the Mystery Babylon. And first I want to introduce semeion. Semeion is the language of entire book of Revelation. So the book of Revelation is written in a language of symbols and figures of speech that is the word in Greek called semeion. This is $1 million word. If you understand, Revelation gets much easy to read and understand and discern the various things written. So this is a code language that Bible itself tells at the beginning of the Revelation, very first verse of the first chapter, God tells us the whole book of Revelation, I am writing in the language of semeion. So we're going to learn a little bit about semeion, and the people who are attending this prophecy insights, they are well familiar with semeion, but there are others who are new tonight, as well as those who are new on the internet to these series. So please be patient. Some of these things could be a repetition for the old attendees. Then we will talk about symbology and theology of a woman, and then concept of Babylon. So here you see on the left-hand side, this is the mystery Babylon. This woman is a mystery, and she is the Babylon, according to Revelation chapter 17 and 18. So the woman is Babylon. She has several features, and then she is riding the beast. So and then there are several things spoken of about this woman. And chapter 17 basically talks about the judgment of this woman. God judges this woman because she is a killer woman, and she kills lots of Christians, and she also kills lots of people who are not Christians also. So there's lots of blood in her hands and her mouth, and God judges her. So this woman is called Babylon. So in order to understand the complex symbology, I would go with the basics of a woman, what woman represents in Bible. And then chapter 17 is how the woman is judged. And chapter 18 is the postmortem or Monday morning quarterback. Just look back what happened. So entire 18 looks back at this woman, why she was judged, and what she was and how she was exceedingly sinful, and then it deserves the judgment of God. So altogether, between 17 and 18, there is about 93 characteristics God gives, just staggering amount of features. 93, somebody counted in just 2 chapters. Now we are handling with a sheer volume of data in these 2 chapters. But these 2 chapters alone would not give us a picture of the identity of this woman, who this woman is, and what she is, where she is coming from, and where she is going. All these questions, if we want to answer, we need entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation. So let's launch into the presentation. Tonight, what we are talking about Mystery Babylon. The word mystery is mysterion in Greek. Mysterion is from that we get a verb, Greek verb called muo. From muo we get English word mute. The word mute is you shut your mouth or put a hand over your mouth. You don't want to speak, or you don't want to speak out the great secrets, the great hidden things. So that is which is kind of muted subject by God. God has not revealed this many pages of Bible, many chapters and books. So it is kept muted. That's what literally the mysterion in Greek means. So the mystery. So this Babylon is not somewhat apparent, somewhat open so that people can readily see and recognize. So it's kind of concealed. There is a secrecy. So you have to have godly discernment to discern this Babylon, this woman. And that's the challenge, what this woman is, who this woman is. She operates in a secretive way and in a concealed way. But since we have God's Spirit, and since we have godly discernment, and we have entire Bible in front of us, with God's blessing, God opening our eyes and ears to His Word, we hope to gain insight into this woman. So this is the subject that we are undertaking ourselves through this series. So first, Revelation's language, symbols, figures of speech, and which is called semeion. So I want to keep myself uh, kind of under 45 minutes. People are not able to absorb more than 45 minutes. So we will stop at 45, and I'm maintaining a stopwatch here. So the Revelation's language, symbols, figures of speech, this is all clubbed under one word, semeion. Second topic, we would cover the woman. Who is this woman and woman in the Bible? So we go with the symbology or semeion and theology of a woman in the Bible. This is very important uh, slide that we would be covering because this would lay the foundation for who the woman is. If you do not have this broader biblical perspective of a woman and woman's symbology, what woman represents, you would be lost. Or this is like uh, unscriptural interpretation people would do always. For example, if they see locusts flying, they think they are Apache helicopters or some US military choppers because the locusts look like a chopper. That is unscriptural. Nowhere it says, because the locusts do not suddenly appear in the book of Revelation. They come from Old Testament books. So you have to go through all the occurrences of locust or locusts. So you have to comb through scriptures and get a fair, good idea and a foundation for the locust, and then you come and try to figure out what this locust mean. So if you don't have background of entire Bible, if you only look at a locust, then you go in tangents and strange conclusions that they are helicopters or choppers. So same is the case with a woman. Woman means not necessarily a woman. It's impossible. The mystery Babylon, the woman that riding the beast, is actually a woman. She is not a literal woman. She is a representation of something else. That's where the semeion takes us. So we will discuss about the woman in the Bible, and then I will very briefly introduce the concept of Babylon and its inevitable judgments. So we have concepts and judgments. Why Babylon needs to be judged and why it cries out for judgment to fall on this. So that's the uh, those are the three topics, and then primary scriptures would be 17 and 18 chapters of Revelation. And let's launch into the presentation and the difficulty. The difficulty on left-hand side is fire hose. Nobody would be able to drink from fire hose. This is because the water is so high pressure and the volume of water is so big, so much, it is impossible for you to drink. So the mystery Babylon is such a huge complex subject. uh, Nobody would be able to deal with the entire subject in one presentation. It is impossible. So I cannot drink, and probably you cannot drink water from a fire hose from left-hand side. But if you try to drink from a garden hose, it's much easier, much manageable, and it benefits. Nothing will be spilled over, as you see on the right-hand side. So this is a kind of symbolism. It's a kind of semeion. I'm trying to explain this concept of semeion here, but the real concept I want to go to explain the semeion is next slide. So the Revelation's language, symbols, and figures of speech, it is called semeion. Semeion is representations. The things that are shown to a prophet in a vision, the things that are shown are not an end in themselves. Prophet would be shown several objects, and the objects are representations of something else. So this is very typical in Bible, especially Book of Revelation. So, for example, the Revelation chapter 1, verse 1, here God tells this, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass, and he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John. So God the Father gave the whole content to Jesus Christ. Now Jesus Christ is the owner of this entire book of Revelation. And then Jesus Christ gives this information to Apostle John via an angel, but using a language, semeion. The word signified in English does not do justice to the word Greek, that is semeiano, is a verb form of the noun that is semeion. So semeion, Strong's number 4592, it's a Greek semeion. Me, on, that's how it is pronounced. And its meaning is a sign, mark, a token. So what's happening is when you see a locust, it's not locust, it's something else. So now in a vision, when prophet is shown a vision, all the visions objects are representations of something else. So it's a mark, it's a token, it's a sign. For example, when you see a US flag flying on top of a big building, what does it tell you? Probably it's a government building. It's a federal office. So flag is a sign. And you have at railroad crossings a crossing sign like this, and you have lights, red lights flashing, and then there is a sound also is made. If you go with that sign, it is meaningless unless you understand the sign that the railroad crossing is at this junction and there is a danger of train coming and knocking you out. Beware and stop. So that's a sign. The signs can be positive, asking you to move towards something, or a sign can be negative. Don't come here, like a railway crossing sign. So the signs are the representations of much bigger concept than what the prophet would be shown. So this is dictionary meaning. We will see more and more, try to understand more and more as we progress in these series. So typically, Apostle John, when he was shown a vision, God's Spirit would and take him into realm of spirit and moves him farther away into unknown realm and unknown distances, and he was put in a vision. So the vision is a very interesting thing. There are several people, objects, animals, sometimes birds, and there are lots of interaction and lots of progression of the vision. So he has two sources of information. He has a visual data that he is shown, and there is auditory data or audition. People will be speaking to one another. So he hears the vision. So he both sees the vision and hears the vision, and then he faithfully records what he saw and what he heard. And sometimes he has a question, what is this all about? So he grabs one of the persons in the vision, because vision is now interactive with the prophet. So the prophet will typically go to one of the participants, one of the persons, uh, usually an angel or an elder. He goes and talks to the elder and asks, what is this about? Or sometimes elder would ask John or the prophet, what do you think this is all? You know, sir. That's the standard answer. And then the person, the elder or somebody within the vision would explain what the vision is all about. Sometimes God or Jesus Christ would come and explain the meaning of the vision. And he breaks down all the characters in the vision, what are the real meanings or real entities that these symbols represent. So, so that is the standard vision, but not all the visions we were given explanation. They're quite isolated visions with no explanation in that chapter or even in that book. But as a diligent student, as we set ourselves to be, we find answers somewhere else. Another book, another chapter. Sometimes same book, but another place. So where this vision occurs, we get very little information. That's the normal common feature in Revelation as well as the Bible. So we have to find answers somewhere else, and God seems to sprinkle all this information fairly across the entire Bible. So that's why I'm asking, get familiar with the whole story of Bible. So typically John or any prophet, when he was shown the vision, he was shown a vision like this. So here there's a red elephant which is red color, and the elephant is kicking a blue donkey, and there is a building, and this itself, the building is under crack. That means there is a violent throwing out of donkey, blue donkey, by a red elephant, and it's kind of an earthquake event. this throwing, and then people were all running helter-skelter. They're so panicked because of this huge mega event. So this is very typical of how the prophet would be shown a vision. And prophet would faithfully record what he saw and the whole vision. Like I saw a big red elephant kicking a donkey, which is in a blue color. And so you have color codings and the different animals and the building. And he just mentions at the end of the vision, by the way, I also noticed a US flag on the top of the building. So that's all he gives. But in order to understand this vision, you need a good understanding of the political landscape of America because this is American flag is there, the geopolitical reality and the dynamics of American political scene. You must be aware, you must have basic knowledge and basic understanding of this vision. So what is the elephant? Elephant is symbol of which party? It is Republican Party. Republican states are typically marked red. So it's a red elephant, and also elephant is a symbol of Republican Party. And the blue donkey, donkey is a symbol of Democrats, Democratic Party. And then their color also, it's a blue. The blue states and red states, typically we see that in news. And then this building, we don't know if it is a federal building, looks like. And by the appearance, it's probably US Congress or it's a White House, most likely. But what is happening? Republicans are throwing away Democrats and from one building. So here, this vision, but another vision or another uh, interpretation, it's possible that we find another interpretation in another book or another chapter of the same book. So when we bring those uh, elements, those explanations into this, we will get a better picture. So God expects us to do work and research like detectives. So here we get the information. This is spoken, this vision is shown as a post-election event. So the post-election shakeup. And here is the voters decided. So this is a picture, this is a vision that is showing that election results have arrived and the president, the White House is now occupied by Republicans and the outgoing president, which happens to be a Democrat, is kicked out. It's a figure of speech. The new president is not literally kicking the old president out. It's a figure of speech. So we have to understand the figures of speech. We have to understand the color coding and we have to understand the animals, what they mean. And this is an earthquake. The prophet might have seen a big noise and a crackling sound from the building. And then he saw a flying blue donkey. And then he says it was actually kicked out by a large red elephant. That's how he writes. So, but we have to figure out the elephant is not really elephant, but the Republican Party. The donkey is not really donkey. It's not really donkey, but it's a Democrat candidate. So these kind of discernments we must do. We must do for us to understand the book of Revelation. And God says the entire book of Revelation is not literal. It's a series of semeions, series of signs, symbols, and representations. So if we understand these things, when we come here, when we come here, this woman is not really a woman. She is a representation of something else. That's where we are starting. We are starting to understand the semeion or symbology and theology of a woman. So we will first take baby steps, what the woman is and how the woman is used in Bible, and then we would come to this woman, this particular woman called Babylon. So we have covered this and woman, semeion and theology of a woman. This is a very interesting concept. The woman is presented throughout the Bible. You find in the very first book, and also you find woman in the last book, Revelation. There are tons of women, different ages, different racial backgrounds, different languages, and different functions, and different importances. You see woman all over. Now, when Revelation pictures this woman riding the beast, which woman is this? You have close to 100 women in Bible. So which woman this woman is related to? So it's a natural question. So we must understand the woman is not really a woman, but she is a representation of somebody else or something else. So we have to figure out the representation of a woman. So when Bible talks about a woman, it is not talking about a particular race or a particular language. We see like primary three races in this country. We have African American woman, and as a Caucasian woman, as a Hispanic woman. So when God says this woman, Babylon, is riding the beast, he's not necessarily talking about a particular race. He's abstracting the woman as a very generic woman. This is very important that we understand. So it is not a particular race or language, but it's a very generic woman. So I use this sketch diagrams of a black and white so that we are not talking about a race or a language or a country. When we talk about a woman, woman is a more abstract general concept. So this lays the foundation for a woman. So the biggest symbology, biggest semeion, consistent throughout the Bible, especially from Genesis to Malachi, and then from Matthew all the way to Revelation, you have one symbology for woman. Because in this story, especially when we come to Mystery Babylon, we should lay the foundation that woman is Israel. That's the foundation. So when it talks about woman, it is always Israel. So Israel is a picture by a shadow called woman. So the woman is Israel, and the whole story, all the turns, twists, and uh, all the slowness or fastness and everything story revolves around this relationship of this woman to her husband. It's very important. The whole drama, whole the script runs as a story between her husband. Her husband is Jesus Christ, and he is maker, her maker or creator, and he is also bridegroom, and he is also husband. He is her protector, her purifier, and her judge. I can add king also, because if she has a relationship with king or married to him, she also becomes queen. So we have various renditions. So Jesus Christ is the first Israel in the Old Testament. Uh, Her husband was pre-incarnate word, pre-incarnate word, and he married the ancient Israel or Israel in the realm of flesh. And then he dies and crucified and ascended, and then he marries Again, Israel, not in the realm of flesh, but in the realm of spirit, the invisible realm and inaccessible realm. In that realm, the King, Jesus Christ, exists, and his bride also exists. So there is a second Israel in the realm of spirit, and the first Israel is in the realm of flesh. So, nevertheless, the story progresses between the two Israels as one Israel. So, the script is her relationship with her husband and her bridegroom and her husband, her maker, her protector, her purifier, her judge, and her husband, who was also king. All these relationships play a vital role throughout the pages of Bible. We call that a meta story. The story within the story or meta story which chains and links all the books of Bible, all the chapters of the Bible, all the small and big incidents and episodes of Bible are chained together or linked together with one meta story, that is Israel as a woman and Israel's relationship with her husband, God. So, this is very important to understand the mystery Babylon, to understand why this woman is described in a very negative aspects. So, let's see. I want to give you the different roles of a woman in a typical family, say Israelite family. Woman goes through different phases of her life. She starts her journey as a young girl, and we will see a young girl. So Israel is pictured as a young girl or a virgin, as a virgin, and that's where the story begins. In fact, God begins the story of Israel as just a newborn baby, helplessly lying and abandoned. So that baby God picks up and tries to nurture her, feed her, and care for her, and she becomes a young girl. So let's pick up the story with young girl, and she's young girl and ready for marriage, and here and then she becomes a bride, and bride to be married to her husband, he in this case, Jesus Christ. And she is the bride and the preparation, anticipation of a bride. And then there is a wedding, there's an event, and she becomes wife of Jesus Christ. And then and she becomes pregnant and womb. So this is normal uh, episodes in the life of a woman. So how God does this semeion is he kinds of takes photographs or pictures at different stages in the life of a woman, and then he takes each of the photographs or pictures as you are seeing, and he weaves a story, and he weaves a semeion in symbology around each of these photographs. And that's how the beauty and grandeur of the story of Bible revolves around woman. And then mother nurturing her child. So this is very important. She uses milk as well as meat. And then mother and daughter is a grand illusion. It's a very recurring theme. It's a motif. Mother and daughter, that's that scenario we would see. And then mother and son is a different story, a different paradigm is introduced with this relationship. And then mother and her children, both boys and girls. Usually mother is a teacher as or an instructor here in this role. And then mother or wife can become unfaithful to her husband. She can go bad. Not that every woman goes bad or not. It is not typical or standard for a woman to go after into the unfaithfulness, but there is a possibility. So the Israel's possibility of unfaithful wife. So these are basic pictures, snapshots God takes from the life of a woman and then weaves that picture for the story of Israel versus God, or Israel versus her husband, Jesus Christ. So we learn as we go through these stories, we learn that virgin and maiden are the other words used in Bible, especially King James, for this young girl. She is not married yet. And the expectation is she maintains her virginity and chastity. And she's kind of grown up, but not fully grown up. When she's fully grown up, ready for marriage, she would be called bride, about to be married. So the next is bride, and the bride is wedding. So she's anticipating wedding, prepares herself for the wedding, and then the wedding is followed by feast. So wedding and feast go together with this woman. And then once marriage or wedding is over, she becomes wife. So that's why I covered bride and wife. Because all this symbology, we find that in Revelation 17 and 18 and applied to this woman riding the beast. And the pregnant and womb, she becomes pregnant and she begets a son, a daughter in her womb, and it takes 9 months for her to take care of the baby, and then she gives birth. So this is very important. And the other concepts are travail and labor. So she labor and giving birth, and then the suffering she goes through, travail. You have lots of stories, lots of scriptures that talk about this aspect of Israel. And then we would come to the mother feeding. Once the baby is born, she feeds the baby with milk initially. Once the baby begins to grow and ready to accept solid food, she feeds him solid food, or him or her, or the meat. King James uses sometimes meat, milk versus meat, and mother nurturing her children. And then we have mother and daughter. It's very important. Actually, the whole paradigm, mother and daughter, is daughter extends the mother, and daughter fully reflects the mother. So she is like mother. If you look at mother, you can pretty much tell how her daughter would be, both in terms of appearance as well as behavior. That's what Proverbs tell us and other books of Bible tell us. And the daughter, if you look at, if she is a bad daughter, you can tell how bad the mother could be. There's a possibility. I'm not putting all the responsibility on mother, but how the illusion works, the mother and daughter. This is very intimate, close relationship. So the mother can have multiple daughters. We would see that more in Revelation. Mystery Babylon. She has multiple daughters. So, daughter is an extension and reflection of her mother. But when it comes to the mother and son, we have a completely different uh, teaching, different paradigm. Mother, when she nurtures and brings up a son, we see a king in making. She raises a king. She gives birth to the king. No wonder the entire two books in Bible, First and Second Kings, both the books, whenever they introduce a new king, either in the kingdom of Israel or kingdom of Judah or Judea, we almost always see when a king is mentioned, we also see his mother is also mentioned. The mother and son go together. And this is a rich concept of a king being born and king being trained by the mother. But that illusion is, I don't see that in mother and daughter. And then we have mother teaching her children here. She is instructor. This is the primary illusion for the mystery Babylon, the woman riding the beast. She is instructor. She teaches, instructs her children, This is very, very, very important. In a typical Israelite family, father would go out in the daytime and work outside, and woman, the mother, would take care of her children. So father would tell the his wife what she has to teach her children. So he gives an overall program and overall template or boundaries of what she should teach to her children and how she has to raise her children. And the father leaves on the work schedule, and then the woman and children spend time together, and she's one responsible to teach them well and raise them well and make them a good son or a good daughter. This is the instructor. But if the woman, again, Israel, teaching her children, uh, if she goes astray, she becomes unfaithful to her husband, then she may not teach what her husband wants to teach. She might teach a different teaching. And then she will bring up not righteous children, but wicked children. See how these things are interconnected in the story of Israel. And then we finally have unfaithful wife. Israel actually goes away from being faithful wife to her husband, Jesus Christ. So she becomes adulteress. So this is the first stage of being unfaithfulness. Later on, we see she becomes harlot, is a full-blown lewdness. So these are different aspects of a woman's life, and God captures each of these photographs or pictures and weaves a story or episode of Israel with her husband, Jesus Christ, both in the realm of flesh as well as the story repeats in the realm of spirit. Let's see what else these pictures can communicate to us. The bride always she prepares herself and in anticipation of her husband to come and pick her up, and she goes to wedding. So she prepares. We see the bride of Christ actually preparing herself to be without spot, without blemish, and without any wrinkle. Those are spiritual languages. She shreds off the defilements, shreds off the foolishness, shreds off unfaithfulness. She shreds off all the things Jesus Christ lists as defilements, and she becomes a pure and chaste wife, ready for marriage. The bride made herself ready. This is very important. Both Israel in the ancient times and the new Israel in realm of spirit, does that. Anticipation and preparation for a bride. And then the pregnancy may not come immediately. There could be a long wait, a barren woman waiting for too long. Sometimes, in case of Sarah, she is past her uh, childbearing age, and then God visits and promises, "You shall bear a child next year, this time." So the barren woman long wait and then she becomes pregnant, but other cases she becomes pregnant. The the Israel in the realm of flesh immediately becomes pregnant and brings forth lots of children, but the Israel in the realm of spirit, uh, that Israel goes through long wait and she travails and finally brings one son, a male son, and then she continues to beget other children. And then mother and children. Here, like we saw mother and daughter, they're addressed almost interchangeably. If it is talking about daughter, you can pretty much guess mother is like that. And if he's talking about mother, the scriptures indirectly talking about all her daughters or one daughter. It's a very, very close, tied up relationship. And we see also mother and children. We see this very much. When God is talking about children, he might say that the mother is actually doing something. For example, when in the case of Jesus Christ, when he was a baby, Herod comes to know that there is a competitor for him, and he couldn't identify who Jesus was. So he orders the slaughter of all the babies, male babies, 2 years and under. So all the babies were killed, and then all the mothers were weeping, and scripture figuratively tells us that Rachel is weeping for her children and refuses to be comforted. Rachel is actually their mother, not direct mother, great 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 grandmother. But scripture interestingly gives us a picture of mother crying while children are dead. So Rachel was actually dead long time back, but figuratively, what children went through, the suffering and death, is figuratively presented and attributed to the mother. We also see cases the mother, what scripture describes about mother is actually referring to her children. So we have vice versa relationship, very similar to mother daughter. We have mother to children. So interchangeably used. We see that in Matthew 24, Olivet prophecy, in several places. And then mother is also called a city and also a queen. These are interesting things because we come back to these concepts in Revelation 17 and 18. A city, I think you are familiar with metropolis. Metropolis is a city, the center of the city. Metro, we use the word metro, metro trains, metro buses. It's all city buses. City is somewhat conveyed as metropolis or metro. The metro comes from the Greek word mater, and mater is actually mother. So, in almost all of our languages, a city is somewhat built on the word mother. So, there's an etymological build in several languages. So, mother is always a city, and city is always a mother. We can say metropolis is metro plus polis. Polis is city and metro is mother. So there's an expression called mother city. So these are all intricately linked in a very mysterious way. Probably God built these linguistic and etymological connections so that we understand the mother is also a city, and city is sometimes a mother. And a queen is another thing because Israel is married to her husband, King Jesus. So she becomes a queen, both for ancient Israel in the realm of flesh and the new Israel in the realm of spirit. She is also a queen. Because these are very important concepts we revisit because Babylon, this woman riding the beast, she claims herself to be queen, even though she was not queen. Hmm. Let's see few scriptures to substantiate Amos chapter 5, verse 1. Here, Israel is pictured as a virgin, first picture. Hear you this word which I take up against you, even a lamentation, O house of Israel. The entire house of Israel is addressed here. How God addresses the house of Israel? The virgin of Israel is fallen. The virgin. Israel is always a woman. But is Israel really a woman? No, it's a figure of speech. It's a semeion. Israel is a large group of people. At one point, there are 2 million people. At one point, there are just 12 sons who yielded to 12 tribes of Israel. But they are all collectively called a woman. Israel is always addressed in a feminine gender. So the virgin of Israel is fallen. She shall no more rise. She is forsaken upon her land. There is none to raise her up. So there are tons of scriptures. I'm just giving you a sample so that we are not just talking in air, but there are scriptures that support these things. And then the husband and the wife, the bride and wife, Israel is called wife of God, or God himself calls, I am husband to you, Israel. See, Jeremiah 31, verse 31, he says, Behold, the days come, said the Lord. I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel. Covenant is a picture of marriage. The covenant relationship is a marriage relationship. So I will make a new marriage with house of Israel because the old marriage failed. The old covenant, Sinai covenant, failed. So I will make a new covenant with house of Israel and with house of Judah. But this time it is not according to the covenant or the marriage that I made with their fathers. The fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. This is Exodus and Sinai covenant. That covenant was a marriage. God becomes their husband and they become God's wife. That is Sinai covenant. And that covenant they broke because they did not abide by the terms and conditions of Sinai covenant. So God broke them into two nations and sent them back to the houses of slavery like Egypt. That story is done, closed. That covenant is closed, but God is going to make a new covenant, a new marriage with house of Israel. And here is the thing that I want you to notice. Although I was a husband unto them, said the Lord. So he was husband to Israel. So this is how we make connection. This bride wife, it's meaningless if you call her bride and wife unless until you mention who her husband is. That is the Lord. We understand the Lord is pre-incarnate Jesus Christ, pre-incarnate word. And then barren woman, we see the barren woman. Sometimes the woman wait long. We have several allusions to the barren woman. First is Sarah, brings Isaac after a long wait. Rebecca, she was barren. And finally, Esau and Jacob. Rachel, she was a long barren, finally yields Joseph. Hannah gives Samuel. Manoah's wife, she gives rise to Samson the judge, and Shunamites, an unknown son, she gives after a long wait, and Elizabeth, she yields John the Baptist or baptizer. And then we have finally New Jerusalem or Zion. This is also a woman. This is actually Israel, New Israel in the realm of spirit. She gives yield to Jesus Christ. So these are some of the illusions of a woman giving uh, birth after a wait, long waiting, and they were barren for a very long time. So that's a pattern, and it is not directly referenced in the Mystery Babylon chapters, but it is good to know the background. And then Proverbs chapter 1, verse 8, the mother is an instructor here. Mother is always an instructor. See, Proverbs 1, chapter 1, verse 8. My son, hear the instructions of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. So, mother is teaching the law of God, God's law, not her own law, but forsake not my children. Because the instructions come from father, but the actual teacher could be the mother, the law of the mother. So the true and faithful Israel would always teach God's law to her children. But an unfaithful Israel or unfaithful wife would teach wrong things, not the law, but something else. garbage, trash, and deception. By the way, which the Mystery Babylon also does. She was a great instructor. She's teaching different things, not what God wants them. So this is adulteress, and then see the mother and daughter. This is very foundational, mother and daughter. It's a recurring motif. So it's a motif throughout the scriptures. I just want to give you one scripture so that you begin to see and think and absorb these paradigms. Ezekiel 16, verse 44. Behold, everyone that uses proverbs shall use this proverb also against you. I think the context was against Judah, saying, as is the mother, so is her daughter. As is the mother, so is her daughter. So it's a very close, intimate relationship. One is extends, she extends and reflects her mother. So we see the mystery Babylon not only as a woman riding the beast, she's also called mother. And she has several daughters following and doing exactly same thing as their mother, Mystery Babylon, does. So we must get these paradigms from the rest of the Bible and we must keep them and understand them and remember them. This is very important to understand the future presentations. And then the unfaithful wife, he can even go further away from her husband and she becomes a public property. And then God calls that woman a harlot. A couple of pictures. This is harlot in ancient times waiting at the streets. And then we have harlot at the modern times waiting on modern streets. Yeah, you can good chapters to go through is Proverbs 5 and Proverbs 7. It talks about a harlot goes completely bad, moves away, and does lots of bad things. And in this case, Israel goes so bad, she becomes a harlot. She's unfaithful to her husband, and she's also unfaithful to her children. She teaches different things than the law of God. And in fact, she teaches the wrong things, deceptions, abominations, and fraud. I hope with this background, you begin to see a little bit about this woman. This woman is called harlot, and also she is called mother of harlots. And what can we understand more about this woman? She was wife of Jesus Christ at some point. Now she is not. She is unfaithful. She moved away from her husband. She became adulteress, unfaithful wife, and then she became harlot. Now people cannot come and say this woman is literal. Impossible. She's a system. She's the those Israelites who are no longer faithful to Jesus Christ. That body of individuals are represented by their mother who is unfaithful. But there are some who are faithful to their mother, which is New Jerusalem, and which is also called Zion. She is 100% faithful to her husband, Jesus Christ. So now we are talking about two gospels from two mothers. In this particular case, this mother is a fraud mother and a faulty mother, and what she teaches is a false gospel, not the true teachings of Jesus Christ. So here you are beginning to see some glimpses what we are going to discuss and where this subject would take us to. So this is the harlot. So harlot is a woman and is a feminine description. It is not necessarily a woman. She represents a group of people and she represents Israel and she represents unfaithful folks. And here, Book of Revelation does something kind of takes two independent concepts, two independent entities, and merges them. It merges them. One is woman, which we learned today. Tonight we learned about woman in Bible as Israel. And God takes an entirely different concept called Babylon, and then he clubs them, juxtaposes them, and fuses two concepts into Mystery Babylon. So the Mystery Babylon is a woman as well as Babylon. Isn't it interesting? So, what is this Babylon? Why Babylon is merged into this woman? So, I'll just give you a very basic concepts of Babylon. Not much time. The whole foundation goes back to Babel. The word Babel in Hebrew is same word used for Babylon. So Babel and Babylon are same in Hebrew, and it is the true foundation of the Babylon. You remember the Tower of Babel? People would build and they refused to scatter, and God comes and judges this Babylon. So we'll see with we see Genesis 11 very briefly. Genesis 11, verse 1. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. So the whole people after the flood, they moved as one group, one mass, and went to Shinar in a plain, and they found a place, and everybody decided to settle there. Even though God said, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the whole earth. They don't want to go to the whole earth. They just want to stay there. And what else they think? Genesis 11, verse 3. And they said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they that had brick for stone and slime they had for mortar. And they said, go to, let us build a city and a tower. They want to build something which much bigger and greater, a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the earth. So there's a sinister thinking behind the the whole motivation to build this tower. And let me finish this verse and I will address that. Genesis 11, verse 5. And the Lord came down to see the city and tower which the children of men built. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. This they began to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. And God said, go, let us go down, therefore confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth. They left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did confound the languages of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. So here this the previous verse is very important. They want to build a city and tower for themselves, the prosperity and wealth, and they want to make a name for themselves. They don't want God's name. The word name is a code word for authority, office, and character of a person. So they want nothing to do with God. They establish their own authority and their own reasoning and their own religion, and they want to build a city and tower and make themselves prosperous. So there are two things for the Babylon. One is rebellion. You don't want to be under God's authority. You want to rebel against God, and you want your own name, and and you want prosperity and blessing. Let us build a city and tower. So all the blessings of God would come, would flow out always as blessings with God. Every blessing that comes from God emanates from Him to those who dwell with Him. Here there's a departure, and they don't want to be with God, but they want every blessing from God, from their own heart, from their own mind, from their own labors. So, what they are trying to accomplish is all the blessings of God without God. So that is the second reason for the Babylon. So first is direct rebellion against the authority or and the obedience to God's authority and God's instructions. That is first fundamental feature of Babylon. The second fundamental feature is they want prosperity and the technology and the progress and wealth and well-being and the pleasures and all the riches and all the glory that they want by their own works, by their own planning, and they want to do it without God, completely disconnected with God. So they attempted to build a civilization that mimics the blessings of God, but they want to do it without God. So the rebellion and the prosperity and glory apart from God. These are the two most fundamental features of Babylon. And then God brings this Babylon, which is a country, which is a city, which is a concept, and he merges this concept with the concept of a woman. So the woman and Babylon are merged, and now we have a mystery woman, mother Babylon, riding the beast. So next presentation, I would like to introduce the beast, what the beast is, and then the semeion symbology of the beast, and then we will make a case, and that brings us to the uh, end of the presentation. I will stop the presentation and open the room for discussions. We are very few people, just open the mic and microphone, and then you can say your comments.
Can you hear me, Tagore?
Yes, yes.
How are you doing this evening, sir?
Very good. Thank you. Glad to have
Good,
you.
good. The wife and I were listening intently to your presentation, so enjoyed a great deal of it. One of the things I want you to maybe clarify for us is you mentioned that the woman riding the beast was Israel, or a portion of Israel that had gone astray. Was that your intent?
That is the direction I'm taking, but nothing is substantiated at this point. As we go through the future presentations that become more clear and uh, more scriptures to justify that position.
Okay. We'll tune in to see where you go with that. It's interesting. I haven't heard anything like that before up until this point. Um, my understanding was that Babel, as you discussed, the origins of um the great city that was established after the flood. Um, that was the original Babylon that was in direct defiance of God, and then that continues on up through the time in which God has to intervene and deal with that system. And it's a great religious geopolitical system that is dominated by false religion and enforced by the beast power. So um, look forward to hearing what you say. I will make a comment about one of the things that you may get into, and that is the two um, sides of God's nature and his character, which is the feminine and the masculine. And I don't know if you intend to go into the relationship between the masculine and the feminine and the reason that God created uh, men and women. Obviously, he could have created us in any, but since we're in his image and he divided us up into feminine and masculine roles, how those interact and interplay, and how the both the masculine and the feminine have detrimental uh, things that have to be overcome, but they also have positive things that need to be accentuated, and how they're to work together. So, don't know if you're going to get into any of that, but that's one of the thoughts I had as you were going through this and talking about how the feminine is used both in uh, for cities and also to refer to the nation of Israel.
That's a very interesting area that you're opening up. I haven't thought about that. I haven't intended to address that concept of God dividing himself into male and female when he created man in his own image, man and his wife. But that's a good point you are making. Maybe I will work my way to bring in that also into the play of uh, these the whole play of the script of Mystery Babylon. So that's an interesting way to look at it. I never thought of it. Thank you. And second thing is you talked about uh, the Babylon as an independent entity, independent uh, path of teachings of Babylon. Now this is somehow brought and converged with this woman, and then woman is called unfaithful. So the word unfaithful or harlot or prostitute, all these things come in context of a marriage or a covenant. If you are never in covenant with God, there is no really no harlotry, no unfaithfulness, even the spiritual sense. The people, heathen Gentiles who never have any covenant relationship with God, there is no possibility for them being adulterous or uh, harlot in the context of the marriage, spiritual marriage. So that's why I'm going with this woman as Israel, because you should have some marriage-like relationship with God. Then only you can walk away from that and become completely bad. And that's, I see more and more as we go through the verses in chapter 17 and 18. And 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 picture slowly gets clearer and clearer. Uh, so I hope you trust my judgment at this point, even though you don't have scriptural evidence. But slowly we would cruise through and develop these concepts, make them more clear.
Well,
Am I with you or
yeah, one of the means in which Babylon, this religion, did interact.
you are unmuted? You can speak. Okay. Any other comments, insights, disagreements?
Can you hear me?
Hey, Tagore, it's Chris.
Hi, Chris. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Good to see you. Hope you guys are doing good. I um I appreciate the study, and I know it's just the first one, and you're introducing the concepts. I'm on board with you with regard to, the fact that Israel was in covenant with God, and it even says that as they came out of Egypt, that that God had fallen in love with Egypt, literally. And and he tried many times to get them to change their heart when it came to his way. He gave them his law, the instructions of, you know, what would make them happy and what would make the relationship grow. And there was just constant resistance. You know, it calls them the people stiff-necked and just stubborn. And Moses was so fed up with them after a period of time because they just would not get the concepts. Often made me wonder what was it that was so hard, you know, about what he was giving them. And it was just different. But there was just something embedded in the heart of Israel after being in Egypt that they were not able to wrap their heads, around his love and all of the blessings that he was going to give them. And that is to this day. I mean, we've seen this iteration a number of times. So I'm interested in the way this will develop, and I'm always interested in the way things are, interpreted in the Bible as other things. That's really going to be fascinating. So appreciate the study and the time and effort you put into it, and looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for your insight and contribution. As always, appreciate much. Any other comments and insights?
Tagore, I appreciated your diagrams that you had, both on the life of a woman and the Simeon with the Democrat and the Republican.
Ah,
I thought that really clarified things well as to look at how you should look at Revelation.
yeah, earlier series I presented it black and white. Now I color coded the semeion, elephant and donkey. Yeah, I'm glad that you observed that. And try to make things better, try to make some improvements as we go along. Are you a little bit more familiar with the woman as a general concept in across the Bible? Woman as Israel, and then this woman finally riding the beast. And then she is also Babylon now. Babylon comes and merges with the woman, and we have more and more things joining this woman and this Babylon. So it's a sheer data, like volume of data that is astonishing. People counted 93 features of this woman in just 2 chapters. But when we go to the Old Testament scriptures and other scriptures, there are like hundreds and thousands of features would come. And how do we even fathom and understand and remember them? Uh, you have to go by small baby steps, smaller chunks. We can't we can't drink from fire hose. We must drink from garden hose. Uh, Diana writes something in the chat. I'm just reading. Appreciate the way the various roles of a woman were separated into 8 aspects through the life of the relations with God, and then the mother queen possibility at the end. That's that's yeah, I see that. I have been studying this for many years, more than a decade, these 2 chapters, and I listened to lots of teachers explaining different different aspects of this mystery Babylon. But I give my credits to all the teachers that have taught on this subject. Every teacher brought something new about this woman. So I owe much to all the teachers and all the presenters that I have ever watched on this subject. And it is not entirely my my research, even though there's a good portion of it is my research, but this is the work of many other brothers and sisters together that went before me. So that's an honest confession.
Appreciate all the work that you put into this, and certainly God's hand, and for you to be there to teach us these things.
Thank you, Marlene. I'm just a vessel. The glory and credit goes completely to God the Father and His Son, not to the vessel. Vessel is merely speaking. Vessel is not seeking any glory or any attention to himself. Vessel is just an earthen vessel. It lives for some years and is gone. But the eternal and what the eternal says are eternal. His sayings are eternal. His work is eternal. But every teacher, every man is temporal as an earthen vessel, is a limited thing. Yeah, you must never put your, you should never give glory to the vessel. That's futile and that's harmful to you and harmful to the teacher and presenter.
Yes, it's definitely the work of God's hand. Um, the credit goes because of your willingness to do that. But obviously, I mean, even the timing of when this is presented, um, all for God's glory. And it's his work that he's doing.
Yes, Marlene, you have spoken golden words. I want that to resonate with everybody in this Zoom room. It's to the glory of God, not to the glory of man. Sometimes the truth where it takes is difficult for us to go and difficult for us to accept. That's fine, but let's take time and prove everything from scriptures. So at this time, are we good? Like any more questions? We can stop recording and